Good morning, everyone. Jill here. Welcome back to Whispering Willow Farm. The sun is shining. Praise the Lord. So I've been trying to max out my day to take advantage of it not pouring down rain. So we had a farm pickup this morning for flowers. Super proud mom moment. So Charlie has her little flower garden in the raised bed, and she's got zinnias, celosia, and basil. So really all the three things you need to make a bouquet. I actually last year released a Beginning Blooms mini course talking about the top favorites for the summer cutting garden. I'll put a link down in the description below. But I taught this course, and then I started taking this course with Charlie and really kind of explained to her some of the flowers that would thrive in our area if she was wanting to sell them, you know, what to look at. And so she came up with these three. I'm actually going to take you into the garden and show you them just real quick. All right, so here's her little patch. We've got zinnias, lots of different colors. Our celosia. So we've got a yellow variety and then a red. Nathan's moving goats. And then we have Amaretto basil, which is a really, really great filler. We've kind of got this little section right here. So Charlie was able to cut from that to sell to a new vendor that we are partnered with. They're a pop-up shop, and they go to all these different pop-up events and do, like, you can make your own arrangements essentially. And so Charlie felt so proud. She got her first check today, and that just made my mama heart feel so good that we've worked on this thing. She's put in the work, she cut, she talked to the customer. It just made me feel really good. So now I'm headed into the tunnel. I've been starting so many seeds today, so I started another round of Katrina cucumbers, Grand Marshall tomatoes, which if you guys remember, I grew those last year in this high tunnel when Jess and Maya still owned it, when they still owned the farm, and then I grew it the year before when I grew in the high tunnels out at Rabbit Ridge. I love it. It literally almost looks like an apple. So uniform, so great. So I am starting I started 15 more of those, starting some root veggies and some mini blocks. So we've got, we've got radish, we've got beets, starting some more kohlrabi, kind of pushing our limits on that. But now I've got to get into the high tunnel and just start cleaning everything out that we're done with. Primarily that looks like our carnations, which are right here. We just weren't super impressed with the carnations this year. We did a mixed variety from a company, and I don't know, we just don't love them. They're very tedious. They've overbloomed very quickly, and we don't really have a market for it. So we're moving that out so we can amend the beds and get ready to replace it with something else. So let's get busy cleaning. Alrighty, I am almost finished ripping this out. You guys can see I've got quite the mess behind me. If you hear the goat, that's Millie. So we moved Molly and Maybelle from the goat yard into the chicken coop. So we are trying to rotate them to keep the brush down and just keep them on fresh grass. We've had so much rain that everything's really overgrown, and they munch down the side pasture so well. So now we moved them, but Millie's being a turd and doesn't want to come. So we're just trying to give her some space for a minute, and then we'll go try to move her. So I am going to go ahead and start prepping this bed to plant it again. And I am going to show you guys what I'm doing, because I don't think I've ever talked about this, but I do think that this could be a really efficient way to flip beds, whether you're growing in ground or raised beds. So here I have a Broadfork. I'll turn you guys around and show you. So this is called the Finesse. It was a Broadfork designed by my friend Sean at Mindful Farmer, specifically for women. So it's less than 10 pounds, super, super lightweight, which is really, really important to me. So this is what I use when I prep all the patches for the sunflowers. Now, I've owned Broadforks in the past. I've used Broadforks several times. My biggest fallback with them is that they're so stinking heavy, so I can never even prep an entire area without having to stop, being wore out, So essentially what a broadfork does is it would do what a tiller would do. And so we like to practice no dig, no till. And so what you would do is, instead of going in and tilling up your ground to prepare it for the next thing, you would take your broadfork and do this. Now, I do know I did a video the other day and I hopped in my beds and I was like, now, all you people don't come at me because I'm standing in my raised beds. And what happened? All the people came at me because I'm standing in the raised beds. This is actually how I prep my beds in the raised bed garden. It works really, really well. What I do is I move the drip irrigation, which the spikes on the broadfork are wide enough to where you could just go in between your drip if you already had it down. But if you work backwards, then you'll always be cultivating the space in front of you. Now, granted, it's not ideal to walk in your beds, but if you have to do it and you're cultivating at the beginning and walking back, then no part of the bed will have been compressed. You're like cultivating that with the broadfork. So essentially that's what I'm going to do here. One thing I do like about the Finesse and the size of these beds is that I can actually do it from either side and not have to step in my beds. So one option would be to stand in them, cultivate and walk backwards, or I can actually come in at the side, which I'm going to pop the GoPro up in a second and show you. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be, you know, loosening up the soil, mending it, getting it ready for the next crop. But I'm going to do this just from either side. All right, so just like that, this is done super fast, super efficient. I do like to use this instead of a tiller. We do actually have this little motorized hand tiller that you can put up in the bed, crank it, and it tills it up. I will tell you, this is really hard for me to operate on my own. It's a pain in the butt, and I'm like shaking and it takes it out of me. Granted, I'm huffing puffing, but it's like, gosh, high 90s here today. It's the middle of the day. It's just hot. So if you guys are interested in the Finesse, I'm going to drop a link down here. You guys can go check it out. Another cool thing though is the spacing. So after you have lifted and kind of loosened up all your soil, you can turn it over backwards as you guys saw and drug it. And the nice thing is that, you know, levels out your ground, but then it's spacing. So here's all of my adequate spacing to know how to plant, which is super, super nice. So you can see here, this side I've done, that side over there I haven't. And it definitely just loosens up your soil. If you're going to amend it, this would be the time to do it. Just throw some amendments on there: feather mill, blood mill, bone mill, prebiotics, whatever it is you're using. Broadfork that stuff in, then you are ready to plant. So I do have a few more down here to take out, but the bees have been crazy down here pollinating this morning, so I was trying to wait and just let them keep using it to pollinate before I ripped out everything. So that's a little bit of what I've got going on today. It's a busy day, full steam ahead, pretty hot, but it does feel good to be making progress, to be getting crops out, new crops in. So yeah, that's what's going on. I'm going to finish cleaning up the carnations, clean up the tunnel, finish broadforking that bed and adding some amendments to it. But thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. I'll talk to you soon.